How do you strategically and effectively learn phrasal verbs in English? Like many of my students, you might struggle with that question. You may even feel overwhelmed by the sheer number of phrasal verbs we have in English because there are thousands of them. So where do you start? And how do you learn them in a way that allows you to also remember them easily so that you can use them in conversations when you want? If you don't already know, I'm Anne-Marie with Speak Confident English. Everything I do here is designed to help you to get the confidence you want for your life and work in English. One way I do that is with these weekly Confident English lessons that I share at my Speak Confident English website and at the Speak Confident English YouTube channel. In these lessons, I share my top fluency and confidence building strategies, targeted grammar practice, and advanced level vocabulary lessons, just like in this one today. So while you're here, make sure that you subscribe to my Speak Confident English channel so you never miss one of these lessons. And now let's get back to that question of how do you strategically learn phrasal verbs? In my Confident English lesson today, I'm going to answer that question and help you get started. The answer to strategic effective practice is simple: themes. Learn new vocabulary, including phrasal verbs, in themes. There are two reasons why themes are so effective. Number one, when you choose a theme to focus on, you're likely to choose something that you are either extremely interested in or it's an area of need. It's a topic that you need to speak to for work or in your daily life. As a result, what you learn will be practical and useful to your life. The second reason themes are so effective is that you are going to encounter the same vocabulary again and again and again as you study that theme. And let me give you a clear example of how that works with our focus today. In this lesson, you're going to learn 26 must-have phrasal verbs in English for travel. And let's talk about this idea of repetition. In this lesson, I'm going to introduce you to several new phrasal verbs, or maybe some phrasal verbs you've learned before. So you'll have the opportunity to hear them. You can even go to my website to see this lesson online and read them as well. So you're getting that learning process. In conversations with coworkers or neighbors about their past vacations or their upcoming summer plans, you'll have the opportunity to hear those same phrasal verbs again in those conversations. You might spend a little bit of time online this week reviewing some articles about travel. For example, how to plan your dream vacation, or maybe the top 12 cities to visit this year. In those articles, you're likely to see some of the same phrasal verbs that you're going to hear in this lesson today. And then finally, when you practice speaking with others, and when you get to share your travel experiences, you have the opportunity to use these same phrasal verbs. This is the key to not just learning phrasal verbs effectively, but remembering them so that when you hear them in conversations, you immediately understand the meaning and you can use them in your communication as well. Now, with this theme today, I've divided it into 4 subtopics, so it's easier to stay focused. We're going to look at phrasal verbs that we typically use when we're booking or planning a trip, then a series of phrasal verbs we use for transportation. Part 3 will be phrasal verbs that we typically use at the airport and a hotel. And finally, phrasal verbs that you're likely to use or hear when you arrive at your destination. Before we get into part 1, I want to spend a little bit of time reviewing what exactly is a phrasal verb. Now, if you're crystal clear on this and you have no questions about what phrasal verbs are, I recommend that you skip ahead to the next part where we begin with phrasal verbs used in booking and planning a trip. I've made that easy to do by splitting this video up into chapters so you can go on ahead to the next section. For those of you who want a quick review, let's talk about what exactly is a phrasal verb. A A phrasal verb is a standard English verb combined with an adverb or a preposition. For example, the phrasal verbs to get away and to look forward. These two combine a standard verb with an adverb. Two more examples include to get into and to dream of, where we have standard verbs combined with prepositions. What makes phrasal verbs really tricky is the fact that when we combine the standard verb with an adverb or preposition, there's a whole new meaning to learn. You are learning an entirely new verb. You might be familiar with the verb look or familiar with the verb dream. But the meaning of those verbs when they are alone is different from the meaning when they're combined with an adverb or preposition. And with that, let's dive right into part 1, our first series of phrasal verbs. When you're booking or planning a trip, one of the first phrasal verbs that you're likely to hear is to get away. To get away means to leave and go somewhere for a break, a vacation, or holiday. For example, in a conversation with a friend, I might say, "You really need to get away and recharge your batteries. You've been working way too much lately." And in response to that statement, my friend might say, "I know, I've been dreaming of going to the beach." To dream of something means to think about or wish for something that you really want. Now, if you've been dreaming of a long vacation, you might need to sock away for a while. To sock away means to put money into a bank account or to invest it in some way so that you are saving. For example, in the past year alone, he had socked away enough for a 2-week trip to Portugal. In addition to saving a bit of money, you might also aim to rack up points for free airfare. This is something that hotel chains, airlines, and credit card companies do quite a bit. As you spend money on airline travel or hotel stays, you earn points over time, or you can rack up points. As you do that, you'll be able to exchange them for a few free nights of stay or some cost savings on airfare. And when you have enough of those points, you might say, "I've racked up enough points for a free trip." Socking away and racking up points will certainly be important if you see prices hike up. To hike up means to increase or raise the cost of something. For example, due to fuel and staff shortages, airlines have hiked up the cost of airfare. Before we continue with a few more phrasal verbs we use when planning a trip, I want to pause here and take a second look at what we've learned so far. We've had the phrasal verbs to get away, I need to get away, I'm dreaming of, he had socked up, airlines have hiked up. Do you notice that the way we use phrasal verbs is exactly the same as standard verbs? There are 2 important things that we're doing. Number 1, to ensure accuracy, we are changing the phrasal verb according to its tense. So you might see the phrasal verb in the present, past, future, and so on. The second thing to pay attention to is that the phrasal verb agrees with the subject. For example, I can say, "I dream of going to the beach," and "my husband dreams of going to the mountains." As we continue to practice today, keep these 2 things in mind. And now, let's continue with these phrasal verbs we need to plan for our trip. Number 6 is to figure out. In those first moments of planning where you're going next, you might need to figure out where you want to go. To figure out means to solve a problem or to discover the answer to a question. If you're talking about a past travel experience, you could also use it in a sentence like, "We figured out how to explore Europe on a tight budget." After you've figured out where you want to go, you might need a little bit of help deciding what to do when you're there. And someone you know, or perhaps even a travel agent, might hook you up. To hook someone up with someone, or to hook someone up with something, means to successfully put someone into contact with another person or to successfully get someone something that they need. Let me give you 2 examples. Our travel agent hooked us up with first-class tickets home to the United States. In this example, the travel agent is helping us get something we need or really want. And the second example, a friend of ours hooked us up with an amazing travel guide. We were able to explore the city, learn its history, and appreciate its architecture. In this example, a friend connected us with someone else. Once you have a few of those things in place, I'm sure that you'll be looking forward to your trip. This means to positively anticipate an event. And for our final phrasal verb in this category, it's the one phrasal verb that we never want to hear: to fall through. If something falls through, it means that it fails or it comes to nothing. For example, our travel plans fell through due to a family emergency. Okay, now it's time to move on to topic number 2 under the theme of travel. We're going to look at a series of phrasal verbs that we typically use when using transportation. The first one is to get into. What this means is to enter a car. For example, we got into the car and drove to the beach. Now, if you're using public transportation, for example, a bus, train, or plane, rather than get into, you would use the phrasal verb to get on. For example, once the gates are closed, you are no longer able to get on the plane. Now, you might be wondering, why do we use get in for the car and get on for public transportation? Recently, I did a lesson on prepositions of place: in, on, and at. You'll discover the answer to that question in that lesson, so I'll share a link to it in the notes below this video. Now, the opposite of getting on a plane, train, or bus is to get off. It means to exit. For example, if you're flying to see some friends in another city, you might say, "Oh my gosh, we got off the plane hours ago, but we were held up waiting for our luggage." Do you notice in that example I used another phrasal verb? To hold up. To hold up means to be delayed. So perhaps there was some mix-up with the luggage, and as a result, you were delayed. You were held up waiting for your luggage. You could also use this when talking about traffic. If you are late getting to the airport, you might have gotten held up in traffic. And this leads me to our next phrasal verb. The reason that you may have been delayed or held up in traffic is because traffic was backed up. This phrasal verb actually has 2 possible meanings when we're talking about using transportation. So when you're on your way to the airport, you may be late because traffic was backed up. The second meaning of to back up when we're talking about transportation means to go in reverse. For example, let's say that you're on vacation with your family and you decide to rent a large van, which you're not really comfortable driving. So you might ask someone, "Could you give me some help? I'm trying to back up the van." And now we have just 3 more phrasal verbs that we typically use with transportation. The first one is to pick up. This is a fantastic phrasal verb to know, and it has so much meaning. To pick someone up means to go somewhere, to get someone, and provide transportation. For example, you might be waiting for an Uber to pick you up and take you to the airport. Or you might drive to the airport to pick up a friend who's coming to visit you. If you go to the airport to pick up your friend, you're likely to pull up to the passenger pickup area. To pull up to a specific area means to stop your vehicle in a certain place. So once again, let's imagine you have a friend coming to visit you. You are driving to the airport to pick her up, and you know that she has already arrived. She sent you a text message to say, "I've landed, I have my bags, I'm waiting for you in the passenger pickup area." And you might call her to say, "I'll be there in just a few moments, I'm pulling up soon." Or, "I'll pull up to the passenger pickup area in just 1 or 2 minutes. The opposite of picking someone up, so again, going somewhere to get someone, is to drop someone off. This means to take someone somewhere and leave them there. So at the end of your friend's trip, you might say, I can drive you to the airport to drop you off this afternoon. Or if you're in a taxi on the way to the airport, you might tell your driver where to drop you off. For example, you can drop me off at the United Gate. Now, one more phrasal verb I want to share here doesn't connect to transportation, but it is part of this process of dropping someone off, or it's related to it. We also have a phrasal verb, to see off. This means to be present in a departure area and to say goodbye to someone. Remember, to drop someone off means to take them to a location and leave them there. So you drop your friend off at the airport and you drive away. To see someone off means that you take them to the airport, you park the car, you go inside the airport with them, you wait in the departure area, and at that last moment, you say goodbye. So you could tell your friend, I would love to see you off at the airport. I'll take you this afternoon. And when you say that, it's clear that you'll be going into the airport with your friend and you'll wait with her until her flight is ready. Okay, we have 2 more sections to go. I hope that you're writing down a few new phrasal verbs and getting some example sentences written down as well. Our next section is quite short with just 4 phrasal verbs that we typically hear at the airport and at the hotel. Number 1, to check in. This means to officially let someone know that you've arrived for a reservation. The first thing you'll do at the airport is to check in for your flight. And after you arrive at your destination, you might check into the hotel before you go out to explore the city. The perfect opposite to that is when it's time to leave the hotel, you check out. This means to leave a place, for example, hotel, and in the process of leaving, you return any keys and pay outstanding fees. The third phrasal verb in this category is to take off, and we only use it with an airplane. It's not used in a hotel. To take off means to leave the ground. For example, the plane takes off after all passengers have boarded and the doors have been closed. And the opposite of that is to touch down. The next time you're on a flight, listen carefully to the pilot if the pilot is speaking in English. You'll likely hear this phrasal verb. It means to descend the wheels on a plane and land on the ground. So in the last 20 or 30 minutes of a flight, you might hear a flight attendant or a pilot say, we're going to touch down in about 20 minutes. Okay, it's time for our final section of 26 must-have phrasal verbs for travel in English. Section 4 includes 4 phrasal verbs you're likely to hear or use when you get to your destination. The first one is to look around, and this means to explore what is near you in an area. For example, that first day in the city, you might not have a lot of plans, and you might ask someone, do you want to look around for a place to eat? Or do you want to spend the afternoon just looking around? As you look around the city, you might also get around. This means to go or travel to different places. When you tell someone else about your vacation, you might say, we were able to get around the city easily on foot. Or, despite the gloomy, rainy weather, we were still able to get around and explore the city. The third phrasal verb in this section is to head for or head toward. And this means to begin moving in the direction of a certain place. So let's say that on your second day of your vacation, you have plans to go to a museum. After breakfast in the morning, you might say to your partner, are you ready to head toward the museum? Or you might even say, let's head toward the museum, but on the way there, there's a coffee shop I'd love to try. And finally, our last phrasal verb for today is to head back. After a day of getting around the city, exploring everything there is to see, you might be tired and feel ready to head back to your hotel. This means to begin returning to a place. You started your morning at a hotel, You went out and explored the city, and now it's time to return back to that place. And with that, you have 26 must-have phrasal verbs in English for talking about travel. Now, if you practiced along with me and you wrote down a few of your own example sentences, I would love to know what they are. You can share with me in the comments section below. While you do that, make sure that you also review the example sentences that others have shared. It's part of that process of repetition, and it might give you a few ideas of how you can use the phrasal verbs you've learned today. If you found today's lesson helpful to you, I would love to know. You can give this lesson a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss my next lesson. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next time.